Hello dear 1000 PS friends from the beautiful surroundings of the New Church Summit. BMW has brought the face of its best-selling motorcycle into the A2 adventure bike class, and we, Gregor Polk, Bernd Hiemer and I, took a very close look at the F450 GS here. We rode it both on the road and off the road, and if you want to know our opinion, then stay tuned. Yes, it does not always happen that a motorcycle, when it is first presented, then actually goes into series production in almost exactly that form. And I can still remember very well when I first saw this F450 GS at EICMA. And this is exactly how it stands here now. I really like it. And above all, it has really received the look of the big GS of a 1250 or 1300 GS. It really does look like a proper adventure bike. We are in the A2 adventure bike class here. That means the motorcycles have manageable power, and still, I have to say honestly, the 48 horsepower of this motorcycle from this 410 cubic centimeters twin cylinder engine are always noticeable. That is why you can certainly go touring with this motorcycle. We have, as mentioned, 48 horsepower at 8,750 revolutions per minute. We have 43 Newton meters of torque at 6,750 revolutions per minute. That is already very good for the A2 license class. So it uses pretty much everything you are allowed to ride in the A2 license class. And it is simply a GS. We already have a video of it online. Bernd was at the launch and already tested it there thoroughly. But here we simply looked at what an adventure bike can do in everyday use. That means we rode it on the road, here on the mountain passes. We rode up the Großglockner and we also rode it off the road. We will get to the off-road part later. As always, with a GS, you can of course upgrade and add quite a lot of accessories. Here we have, so to speak, the top model, the GS Trophy, with the tinted windscreen, the white handguards, a solid engine guard underneath, and above all this easy ride clutch. That is something completely new. And to introduce it, because it is a type of centrifugal clutch, I will now bring Bernd over, because he not only rode it at the launch, but also already has one at home for his off-road training where he uses it. And he can certainly explain all the special features of this easy ride clutch, in detail. For me, it was a little bit unusual at first when setting off, because it needs relatively high revs to move away. So I put it into gear, which all works without using the clutch, and that is already the wonderful thing about it. But then we thought, okay, maybe I need to put it into gear again. No, in my opinion, it simply needs more revs than usual before it starts moving, and then you can shift without ever touching the clutch. It reminded me a little bit of riding with a recluse clutch, but Bernd is coming over now and he will tell us exactly how the whole thing works. Bernd, you have ridden it quite a lot already. What do you think of the easy ride clutch?
Yes, hello Wolf, you are right, I have already ridden it quite a lot. I was at the BMW product launch and I also have one of these motorcycles myself. And yes, I can agree with you. At the beginning, in the first moment, it feels a little bit unfamiliar when you need a little more revs, maybe around 500 revolutions per minute more to set off than you normally would. But the big advantage is that you can never stall the motorcycle. So you simply give it throttle, and if nothing happens yet, you give it a little more throttle and eventually it starts moving. That is the part that feels a bit unfamiliar. Once you have got used to it and you always keep just a touch more revs than usual, for example when turning around, then it is actually great. The nice thing is that you still have a clutch lever, you can still use it and you do not have to completely relearn anything. So you can almost ride normally.
Exactly, but you do have to watch out for one thing. As I noticed once when I stopped uphill, it does not help that the gear is engaged. That means the bike will roll backwards.
Absolutely. The clutch works through centrifugal force, and if you are standing on a slope with the gear engaged but there is no throttle or the engine is off, then of course that centrifugal force is not there. So just like when you have pulled the clutch, yes, there is a slight resistance, but you are right, if it is steep, the motorcycle will definitely roll backwards, so it definitely helps to stay on the brake or of course to plan your riding accordingly.
Exactly. So do not park it carelessly like that, as people often do. You will probably only do that once. It is simply something you need to know. It is not a problem at all. But in principle, I really enjoy riding with this easy ride clutch.
Absolutely. My son as well, who has little motorcycle experience, and when the bikes arrived, he is already incredibly tall for 11 years old, about 1.60 meters, and he can reach the ground with his toes. You can put him on it, he simply gives it throttle and rides away. So from that point of view, it is very user-friendly, especially for someone with little off-road experience. Also at the press launch where we were riding, there were some journalists who do not have quite as much off-road experience as I do. Normally, it is common that someone stalls the bike all the time, someone tips over because the engine has stopped. But that simply never happened. So from that perspective, it is incredibly accessible. But also for a rider like me, who likes doing a few stunts or playing around off-road, you still have the clutch and you can still use it. But even I very often enjoy the comfort. So also watch our 5-bike comparison where we do exactly that. When you switch directly from a motorcycle that has such a clutch to another motorcycle, and suddenly you have to use the clutch normally again, that also feels unfamiliar again.
Exactly. We still have several other motorcycles here as well, but you mentioned a very important point, the ergonomics. The motorcycle is very accessible with this seat height of 845 millimeters. We will also show you how riders of different heights feel on it and how well they can reach the ground. You have a relaxed knee angle. Somehow I really feel like I am sitting on a big GS. Okay, it does not have the same engine performance, but I think it is wonderful for touring. And if you add luggage, when we have these Westwind Moto soft bags on it with a waterproof tank bag, if you strap something like that onto it, then you are really ready for a tour with this motorcycle. I always say a motorcycle is never really too weak. It is all a question of route choice. If you ride kilometers and kilometers on the motorway, no motorcycle is really fun. But if you plan your route properly, if you take twisty roads right from the start, then with a 48 horsepower motorcycle, you are definitely not underpowered. I remember when I got my license, a 500 was still considered a big motorcycle. And today, many people call them mopeds. No, it somehow brings back the lightness of riding. I always have the feeling that when I ride in this A2 license class, you really see again how simple motorcycling can be. Is it enough for you?
As you said, yes, it depends on the route choice, of course, but I fully support what I keep saying. The A2 class is always generally labeled as a pure beginner class. But I always say, first of all, even as an experienced rider, and second, as a rider who says, I do not need well over 100 horsepower, over 200 kilos, and some huge electronics package with radar and whatever else exists, that person will feel incredibly comfortable on this motorcycle. And exactly as you said, in the past, a motorcycle with almost 500 cubic centimeters was simply a big motorcycle. And I enjoy it so much because with these smaller motorcycles, I almost feel like I am having a flashback, like I am back in the moped days, where you can actually rev out a gear and have fun. When you are riding such a big motorcycle, you hear that second gear is in, you open the throttle once, look at the speedometer and think, oh my God, this cannot be true.
And 178 kilos ready to ride, fully fueled, is also quite a statement. So without wanting to get ahead of ourselves, in this comparison, it is also one of the lightest. And you feel that when riding. So I would say it really is an accessible motorcycle, but with the right equipment, it is also ready for touring. Here on the trophy, we have the tinted windscreen. I think there are also different windscreens available, including higher ones as accessories. But for what we rode here and for the performance, I think the wind protection is also sufficient.
Yes, absolutely. I am not the tallest either, but at 1.75 meters, I have to say it worked perfectly for me. At the product launch, we also rode in terrible conditions, in huge monsoon-style rain. And there too, it was absolutely fine. Yes, this is a motorcycle that is really accessible and one that you can have fun with. I really like it a lot and I really enjoy riding it.
Wonderful. I also really enjoy riding it, and what I also like is that it has quite a bit of electronics. We have traction control, we have anti-lock braking system, you can switch everything off, we have different riding modes, And all of that is familiar through this control wheel. So if you know a GS, if you know a BMW, you will immediately feel familiar and comfortable on it. You can adjust the suspension. We have 180 millimeters of suspension travel at the front and rear, which is not an enormous amount of travel, but it is fully adjustable. So at the front, rebound and compression, at the rear, preload, rebound and compression. We will make full use of that when we go off-road. I would say we do another lap now and then we will report back from the off-road area. Good, I am now reporting from the off-road terrain of the New Church Summit, where we already let it rip a little bit, or at least made some dust, especially Bernd, who was always a little bit ahead of us. But regarding the BMW F 450 GS, I really have to say it is a very coherent package. Personally, I was really skeptical about the 19-inch front wheel, but at least where we were riding now, where most people will probably ride as well, it was not a problem at all. I would perhaps say that it is more noticeable that you cannot yet get spoked wheels this year. There are apparently delivery difficulties. A cast wheel is always a little more sensitive when things get rougher, but on unpaved roads and off-road tracks it was really enjoyable. And some of the shots we captured here were filmed with the Insta360 X5 camera. I also use this camera a lot privately because it simply captures everything. As the name suggests, you do not have to think beforehand about where to mount the camera or at what angle to mount it, because afterwards, during image editing or video editing, you can choose the framing you want. For example, if I put such a camera on a selfie stick a little bit in front of the handlebar, I can film myself as well as the front wheel, the engine and the motorcycle. So every direction, the landscape, and I can always decide afterwards. Personally, I have an Insta360 camera with me on every one of my trips, and I do quite a lot of traveling. I can really recommend it. You can see for yourselves what you can do with it. We will put the link to the camera down in the video description. So if you are thinking about which cameras to use to capture your adventures, this is definitely something worth considering. I really enjoyed riding here in this terrain. But I will now bring Gregor in as well, because both of us were always following in Bernd's slipstream. Let us see what his impressions were.
I heard you say we were riding in Bernd's slipstream. You know, to be in the slipstream, you have to stay close. I would rather describe it like this. We saw him briefly, and then he was gone. Of course it works. We know that especially off-road, more than ever, the rider is the limit. And that was impressively proven to us again, as if any proof were needed. But yes, it works. And it works very well, especially in the case of the 450 GS, because it is an incredibly coherent overall concept. So for a first attempt, bravo, BMW. But in direct comparison, you still notice, of course, when there are rocks. Sure, it gets a little more unsettled. It simply brings a bit more movement into the bike. It is good that we have the higher quality suspension here because that absorbs some of it again. But there is no question, when things really get rough, like here in the forest with roots, stones, edges, and whatever else, a 21-inch front wheel is still a 21-inch front wheel. But to be fair, how many riders really attack hard terrain with an adventure bike like this? Only a fraction of riders.
Exactly, and if you roll over it, it works with this bike as well, even with the cast wheels. I already said, unfortunately, spoked wheels are not available yet. BMW is working on making that happen soon. I think people will want that visually as well. Spoked wheels simply belong on an Enduro. In terms of price, of course, we are then already relatively high up, although you also have to praise BMW here. The entry price of the F 450 GS in Austria at just under 7,500 euros is really okay. So they do not have to hide from the competition there. Yes, if you then take the trophy, if you then take spoked wheels, you quickly enter another price range. That is clear. The trophy now costs 8,325 euros, but then you might also want the Enduro Pro program.
That is actually already included. The trophy already bundles quite a lot together, but with the trophy package and easy ride clutch, it is on the more expensive side. But especially as an off-road rider, when we talk about off-road riding, the disadvantage is, with Easy Ride, if it rolls backwards, the motorcycle can roll away. And we do not have a parking brake or anything like that. As you know from some Honda models, that means if you are on a slope, and especially, Wolf, if you are not a Supermoto World Champion, you get into trouble somewhere, you stop unintentionally, and if the bike then also rolls backwards, yes, that is also a disadvantage. So for someone who says, hey, I want to ride this successful package a lot on loose ground, it might be better not to take the Easy Ride clutch. You lose the comfort in everyday riding, but you can simply switch off the engine normally, and first gear blocks it backwards as well, not only forwards.
Exactly. And I would also say the handguards will survive 2 or 3 falls. For standard equipment, that is okay. There are more robust ones. Anyone who really wants to push hard on unpaved roads will eventually screw on different handguards. The foot pegs on the Trophy are really okay. They offer good grip. The brakes are coherent as well. So overall, I think I'm pleasantly surprised.
I think I am actually right in the middle of being enthusiastic, especially when it comes to active riding. On the road, Advantage 19-inch, more tyre surface, great suspension, great engine. Off-road, also nice. For me, the handlebar is almost a touch too low for my 1.85 meters. Of course, when it goes uphill and you ride actively, it is great. But when I imagine maybe having a long day on gravel and then standing there bent over the whole time, my back is not fit enough for that. So I would definitely add a few risers. My biggest criticism of the BMW actually goes in the direction of travel suitability. Yes, it is also complaining at a high level, but first of all, the wind protection is not that great, especially for my height. And if we are already talking about accessories and what you would need to upgrade, when you look at the original accessories for the 450 GS, then on the luggage side, here we have the Westwind Moto setup, which is great for off-road riding. Tank bag at the back, these side bags, super. I am a big fan of soft luggage solutions, but of course not that much fits in there. For a big trip, I would need more. And the thing is, in the original BMW accessories, there are only small side bags with, I think, 15 litres of capacity. That is not much. Here we already have 6-litre bags, so a little more than double that. You can do a week-long tour with that, but not 2 weeks. And above all, we do not have a luggage rack here. And so far, BMW does not offer anything in that direction either. And the tail bag they have, okay, the side bags are small, so you take a big tail bag, but it is simply strapped over the passenger seat. That means you can no longer have a backpack there and you cannot ride with a second person, for example. I find that a little inelegant. It seems a bit unmotivated, like saying, well, this is the best we have. Of course, other manufacturers, third-party manufacturers, will offer something, but I think if BMW already pushes you into this configurator and you can tick so many boxes, then there could also have been a checkbox for really long-distance capable luggage.
I agree with you absolutely. So the A2 licensed traveler will usually be a solo traveler, but there will certainly also be young couples who want to ride it two up.
On August 10th, I am going to Norway with my girlfriend on a 450 GS. But yes, on the BMW side, that is exactly the issue. We will see how that works in detail. But I said because my first motorcycle trip back in 2019 was also to Norway, also with an A2 motorcycle. So when the opportunity came up now, I said I would do it again with an A2 motorcycle. Because in Norway, the maximum speed is 80 kilometers per hour, and the fines for traffic violations are extremely strict, so that is enough. But my girlfriend said, well, the fjords, they would also interest her. So now we will see how well that works. That travel video will also be on the channel.
I'm really looking forward to that. You have already heard it. Our enthusiasm is really high. And of course, we would now also be interested in what you think of it. Write it down in the comments. Do you say, yes, this is exactly what an A2 adventure bike should look like, namely just like the big one, like the real one, in quotation marks. In terms of feel, in terms of controls, all of that is almost one-to-one. We would really be interested in what you think. Leave us a thumbs up for the production, and if you have not done so yet, then it is high time. Subscribe to our channel. Goodbye.